Hi there, this is called Keeping Up with the Joneses, and it's a trap in the Sicilian Grand Prix attack, and it's taken from the game Gawain Jones against Zartash in 2008. Jones has carried on the fine tradition of British players excelling in the Grand Prix attack, and he can rightfully claim expertise in this opening. After e4 and c5, knight c3 and d6, f4 and g6. This is the Grand Prix attack where the king's bishop is heading for c4. After knight f3 first and then bishop g7. Only now bishop c4 is met by knight c6. White here castles, and this is a familiar trend in the Grand Prix. White's going to be pushing on with f5, and the queen often comes to e1 and makes a way for h4 with a direct caveman-like assault on black's castle king. So after e6, with the king's knight usually heading for e7 rather than play f6 where it blocks the king's bishop, here d3 is played, and after knight ge7, queen e1. Black to play can castle into the attack, as we shall see. If instead d5, striking at the center, that's a poor move here because e takes on d5 and e takes on d5, knight takes on d5 with advantage here for white. So black, rather than play d5, castles, and now the familiar move in the Grand Prix attack, f5, which often gives up a pawn. d5, striking back at the center, a decent ploy by black. Black's still holding the position quite comfortably. Bishop b3. And after d takes on e4, d takes on e4. Black to play. This is where black, I think, goes wrong. Correct here would be e takes on f5, and black should be able to hold this position. If instead g takes on f5, then we've reached a lesser known line where white can certainly gain initiative. In the game Gdansky against Robert Kempinski 1993, Gdansky played bishop g5 here, whereas in the game we're following, Gawain Jones against Zartash, Jones played queen to h4. So black plays knight d4 and bishop g5. So direct assault by white. After knight takes on f3, possibly dubious again, since it's going to allow rook takes on f3, and you're helping the rook to enter into the attack by swinging over, doing what we call a rook lift to h3. Better than knight takes on f3 would have been f6, but that's a move that certainly looks ugly as it weakens the diagonal, the a2 g8 diagonal. But after knight takes on f3 and rook takes on f3, now queen d4 check, and the king moves into the corner h1 out of harm's way. Black's going to have to rearrange his pieces, so hits the queen with knight to g6, queen h5, and the rook is threatening to come to h3 with a mate threat on h7. Nothing sophisticated in this, very direct. After f takes on e4 and rook h3, it looks all over. Black played f5. If black would have played h6, which looks a little bit better, white would take on h6, bishop takes h6, bishop takes h6, queen takes h6 with a mate threat, but the black queen could come back to g7 to defend. White would not exchange, but withdraw the queen back to g5, and the threat is knight takes on e4 and knight f6 with a very fine initiative for white. But rather than h6, if f5 is played, then it allows queen takes on h7. The king thinks it might be able to run to f7, but that's not the case. White could continue here with a huge advantage simply with rook f1, but again more direct and in keeping with the ideas of the Grand Prix, a direct hit on the castle king. Rook h6, threatening queen takes the knight because the bishop on g7 is pinned. So after knight e7, After knight e7, then we've got a lovely finish here with rook f6 check. If the king moves, then queen takes g7. So if queen takes on f6, it's giving up the queen. Bishop takes on f6. Has black got enough material for the sacrificed queen? After king takes f6, no, white's going to win. First, a simple move, rook f1, introducing the last piece into the attack. On the cards now is knight takes e4. That looks devastating. After rook h8, hitting the queen. The queen's actually got nowhere to go, but it's not trapped because white's going to win after knight takes on e4. After king f7, rook takes on f5. A lovely sacrifice here. The pawn on e6 is pinned to the bishop on b3. So if knight takes on f5 now, queen takes on f5. Again, taking advantage of the pinned pawn on e6. And when king e7, queen takes on c5, picking up another pawn. King f7 and knight d6, and it's all over. White is clearly winning. So this has been the Jones line in the Sicilian Grand Prix. Hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.